Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to share my screen here. And okay, here we go. So I'm going to be reinforcing some of the things that both Kathy and Amy said. I'm going to be talking to you tonight about health and safety concerns with artificial turf. So before we really dive into this, I want to show you what turf actually looks like, because a lot of people are confused about the purpose of the infill. Turf usually has 4 different layers. They have a shock pad, which is some kind of polyethylene or foam, something like that. Then there's a backing, which is either latex or another kind of plastic. And into that backing, these fake plastic blades of grass are sewn. And then the infill is the kind of brown stuff here that holds those grass blades up. So the infill is loose and on top of the turf. And for decades, and Amy actually was a client of Pure's back in the mid-2000s, we were always focused on the crumb rubber infill because we didn't really know what was dangerous or what was even in the grass blades. And now so many different municipalities and universities are moving away from the crumb rubber because, as Kathy said, it's a really bad idea to put down a bunch of carcinogens for your children and athletes to play in. And they are heading towards more what they call organic infills, like cork or engineered wood. But there are problems with all of them. There's a relative newcomer to the scene, which is the no-fill turf. And this is a picture of that. It's kind of shorter grass blades, and you can see those kind of wispy things that look almost like greenish hairs. That's called thatch, and that is what helps hold it up a little bit. This stuff does get flattened out quite a bit, and that thatch also breaks off into many, many microplastics. But the purpose of the infill, and here you can see a picture of that no-fill artificial turf that's been flattened down with just a little bit of use. The purpose of the infill is that it serves as a ballast, so it prevents wrinkling of the turf from temperature changes. It keeps the blades upright. It provides cushioning. It shields the backing from harmful UV rays. And one industry website said, just because turf can be installed without infill does not mean that it should. Without infill, the turf is susceptible to many preventable problems. So the jury is out on this no-fill turf. It's relatively new to the US. I believe that Jeff Gearhart, who's talking later, might be testing some of this for PFAS, but I have never actually seen it except waved around in a room. No one let me touch it. But the bottom line is that the infill is not our only concern. In fact, even if we forget about the infill, even if they use organic tapioca beads for infill, it doesn't matter, because in 2019, Pierre and the Ecology Center, Jeff Gearhart, so Jeff and I, discovered that artificial turf contains per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS. Now, this is a class of thousands of chemicals. They're nicknamed forever chemicals. They're all really persistent because they have this carbon-fluorine bond that's almost impossible to break under natural situations. And many of them bioaccumulate. All that we have studied are toxic. What do PFAS do to you? They can increase your risk of diabetes. They can interfere with your body's hormones. They can lower your chance of getting pregnant, reduce fetal growth, increase blood pressure, which causes preeclampsia in pregnant people, can increase your cholesterol levels. We now know it can lead to cardiovascular disease, increases your cancer risk, alters your metabolism. It can make you fat. And one of the more disturbing things for me is that it reduces your immune system function and vaccine response. So here we are coming out of, hopefully, a pandemic. It can make, if you have high levels of PFAS in your blood, it can make vaccines not work well on you. It also leads to growing, learning, and behavioral issues in children. So how toxic are PFAS? There are 3 routes of exposure: inhalation, dermal absorption, and ingestion. And in April of 2024, just a few weeks ago, EPA issued final maximum contaminant levels. These are regulations stating that there is no safe level of two of these PFAS, PFOA and PFOS, in drinking water. Now, keep in mind that PFOS is one of the PFAS that we are routinely finding in these fields. EPA's regulation includes the regulation of 4 other PFAS, but the important thing to remember here is that they're regulated at 4 parts per trillion, which is a tiny, tiny little amount, and their goal is 0. There is no safe level of these 2 PFAS. Now, one of the things that industry always tells us is that, oh, well, we don't use the bad PFAS, we use the good PFAS. And they actually have this graphic up, this is the American Chemistry Council, they have this up on their website, and they say, chemical families are like berries, and strawberries and blueberries and raspberries are nutritious and delicious, and hollyberries are dangerous and can kill you. And we don't want to ban all berries because then we wouldn't have the delicious strawberries and raspberries and blueberries. Well, the bottom line is this. We have toxicity information on only a handful of PFAS chemicals, and EPA says there are about 14,000 of them. The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. In other words, just because we don't have a study saying that they're dangerous doesn't mean they're safe. All it means is we haven't been able to do that study yet. So most scientists argue that all PFAS should be regulated because they're dangerous. Even the fluoropolymers, which are some of the ones that the turf industry uses in their fields. And just the fact that they're highly persistent is enough to regulate them all and to be concerned about their use. So why is PFAS an artificial turf? 2 reasons, really. They act as an extrusion aid, so the molten plastic doesn't clog the machinery, and they're also used as a slip agent added to the molten hydrocarbons to make the plastic grass blades free of defects. So industry often claims that their artificial turf is PFAS-free. Every single sample we have tested, and when I say we, I'm talking about NGOs and citizens, every single one, dozens and dozens of different samples have PFAS. Industry and consultants often use tests designed not to find PFAS. I'm so sorry. Or, hold on. Sorry about my dog there. Or they say there's no intentionally added PFAS. And here's an example. This is Water Saver turf. They have on their website on the left here, PFAS-free artificial turf is available near you. Might be hard for you to see this, but hopefully you'll be able to see the graphic on the right. They actually tested for various PFAS. They tested for PFOS, PFOA, and a couple of others. And the detection limit is in milligrams per kilogram, which is parts per million. So their detection limit is 0.01 parts per million, which, if my math is correct, that's 10,000 parts per trillion. So remember, there is no safe level, 0 safe level of PFOA and PFOS, and they're testing it down to 10,000 parts per trillion. So that's why they are able to say it's PFAS-free. Always ask for the test results, always check to see what their detection limits are. So why do we care about PFAS and artificial turf? Water around artificial turf quickly becomes contaminated. Dr. Graham Peasley from Notre Dame University estimates that 800,000 gallons of water will be contaminated per year per artificial turf field above EPA's new MCLs. In Martha's Vineyard, a study showed that 12 parts per trillion of just 6 PFAS will leach off a new field. And also, we have just recently shown that PFAS can get on the skin of athletes. As Kathy said, artificial turf sheds microplastic pounds a year, gets into the waterways. Artificial turf not only is hot, but it contributes to climate change. Remember, natural grass will absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. Artificial turf does the opposite. It actually releases carbon dioxide and methane. The manufacturing, installation, service, and disposal of one artificial turf field generates a total of 55.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide. So if your town or your university cares at all about climate change, they should not be putting in plastic grass fields. Artificial turf does need watering. A 2017 study in New Mexico basically said that you need as much water on artificial grass as you do for natural grass, and another 2020 study showed that you actually need more water on artificial turf to cool it down and to clean it. You need that water to keep the dust down, and it can be double the cost of irrigating a natural turf field. As Kathy said, way more injuries on artificial turf. I'm not going to go into all of these, but these are very recent studies showing this. And artificial turf cannot be recycled. The Philadelphia Inquirer just did a big expose on this, and we know now that all of these alleged recycling facilities do not exist. In fact, we found some turf discarded behind a building. We found other turf in an abandoned warehouse. The only place they are recycled is in Baytown, Texas. And as Kathy said, that is not recycling, that is pyrolysis. They're burning it, which leads to environmental justice issues. Artificial turf does not drain well in bad storms. In fact, EPA says that artificial turf is impervious as asphalt. The picture on the left is from West Virginia. That's after a storm, a rainstorm, just a regular old rainstorm. And the one on the right is from Australia after a rainstorm. This is what happens to your artificial turf. What's the option? Natural grass and organic grass. This is a YouTube video. I'm not going to play it, from Springfield, Massachusetts, a city of 150,000 people. They only have organic grass fields. This is what they look like. That takes care of your pesticide problem. No pesticides on organic grass fields. If they are designed correctly and built correctly, they are better than artificial turf. So in conclusion, artificial turf is a bad idea environmentally. The year is 2024. This is a fossil fuel product. We do not need them. We do not want them. They're poisoning you, and they're poisoning your water and your soil, and natural grass is a much, much better alternative. Thank you very much for bearing with me.